Episode 2, Sakizuke, written by Jeff Vlaming and Brian Fuller, directed by Tim Hunter. Welcome to Fate and Circumstance, a Hannibal fan podcast. We are still doing Season 2. I am your main host, Felix Fanfaron Fern, and these are my co-hosts.
Hello, I'm Melisa Suzan, and I am suffering in many ways.
Hi, I'm Shaira Bambi, and we're all suffering.
We are all suffering.
I blame Hannibal.
Real suffering together brings people closer.
That's true. Me and Shaira specifically have had an ongoing argument for the last week about whether or not Hannibal is wife material. And I'm very angry about the fact that Shaira doesn't agree. No, don't you start as well. Yes, he is.
No.
You've seen this man cook.
I don't care. He cooks people.
That's exactly. He doesn't get wife material if he's a bad person.
No one's perfect. Nobody's nerfect. I'm going to start out, continuing on from last week. We're going to do little shout outs at the start of each episode for Hannibal fan creators, because I follow a lot of them, because I like fan creations. So the first person I'm going to shout out is someone who is a Norwich local, which is where I live.
Ooh.
This is the artist John Scarrett, who does not do solely Hannibal art. He does a lot of horror art, but also other stuff. If you look on his Instagram, he has a lot of really unusual but very funny pieces of art. But his Hannibal work is fantastic. He has produced an entire Hannibal art book where he has drawn a piece of art for every single episode of all 3 series.
That's fantastic.
They're all so good. They're all heavily red toned. He's also done 3, I believe, prints, because he's done one of just Hannibal and Will, one specifically for the Dolce episode, and a Red Dragon piece as well. I highly recommend checking them out.
Will do. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for season 3.
Well, thankfully, I wouldn't say there are any spoilers. If you look on his Etsy, I would say to you two not to buy his book yet. But looking at his stuff, you won't see any spoilers. Okay. The second artist is Zilla, or BD Zilla on social media, who is, in my opinion, a master craftsman of Hannibal's tits specifically.
Yeah, pretty.
No one draws Hannibal's pecs quite like Zilla does. If you like spicy, saucy artwork, I would highly recommend looking at them. They have more 18 plus artwork on their Patreon, but also they have a wonderful shop where you can buy stickers and prints and all sorts, and they are the person who has notoriously made the beautiful Hannibal booby mousepad.
I'm obsessed. I might actually get one. They're so good. But then I think it will be a little bit distracting, because I'll probably just squeeze the pecs.
But that's what it's for, surely.
I don't know how I'd explain that to anyone, so I probably won't get it.
Yeah, just cup them.
I think it'd be therapeutic, like a stress toy. Just if you're feeling particularly pent up, just a little squeeze.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll do that IRL anyway.
Yeah, I do that with my own boobs. Sorry, I don't really need.
Okay, well, some of us don't have breasts, so it might be more helpful.
No, but I don't touch my own.
Oh.
It's my partner's, by the way. Just to clarify, just a disclaimer, just a statement. It's my consenting partners that I do occasionally cusp and grab as part of our agreement of being in a relationship. Thank you.
Well, some of us live alone.
Mad. When I'm alone, I can grab the mousepad. Mousepad,
Yeah.
mad.
Mousepad.
A madspad.
A madspad. Oh, I love that.
Onomatopoeia, the word combinations. Oh, this is great promo. This is great promo for this one item.
I will, of course, on all of our social media and stuff, when we post the episodes up,
Epos is the new word, please.
When I post up the epo, I'll tag the artist and all their socials and stuff, so you can go find their wonderful work.
Fantastic.
But yeah, we'll do this every week. I have some ideas for next week, which I will surprise you with.
I love the idea, and yeah, I love the creators. Love knowing about them as well.
Because sometimes I think, especially if you're new to a fandom, which I know some people have been with this podcast, it can sometimes be kind of hard to find stuff like that. Unless you're like me, who has eventually curated just an entire feed of shit. That's another thing. If you just follow our Twitter, you will see that I retweet fan art nearly every day. So where I try
Nearly?
No, okay. Every day I retweet Hannibal fan art on our Twitter, where I try to avoid spoilers in case these two see it. But yes, if anyone ever notices our Twitter, it's always laden with fan art. I try to avoid the sexually explicit fan art. I don't always succeed, but if it's got a dick in it, I don't usually retweet it just in case.
A bit difficult.
To be fair, I don't know why I do that. That's just a rule I set for myself. I could retweet all of the Hannibal dick, and I might.
Free the willies.
You're pretty good. We are an 18 plus. I think we're classified 18 plus, right?
We are. That is true. All right, fuck it. I'm going to start retweeting dicks.
Yes! Time.
Get back to our gay sex roots.
We are a bunch of gays.
So, it's our usual question to begin with. How did you both find the episode?
Ooh, that opening is hard.
Yeah, gruesome.
Very
gruesome. Overall, I love the episode. They were really good. There's more I can say about it, but I'm gonna let Melisa talk.
No, you can go if you want.
Oh, okay. I just feel like I always talk, or I always.
There you go.
That's good. Okay,
go
I liked it. There's lots of things that I really enjoyed. I liked the little parallels between like other episodes, like especially the ending, especially part of the ending where Bedelia and Jack meet up in that room, where it's just literally that room is like perfect. It's like a half and half. It's like side by side, which is really cool. I liked kind of everyone's acting. I liked Will's acting specifically. Hugh Dancy's acting so fucking awesome, from switching between both, not the victim slash person who's going through it all, and his own kind of savior. There's parts where Hanny kind of go, ooh, what is Hanny thinking? Is he seeing through the bullshit? What is he thinking? And yeah, there's lots of cool things that I really enjoyed about the start.
Nice. I think it's just going to be the whole shtick of the show, isn't it? Like, it was hard to watch most of the time, but I still enjoyed it. Like, I wanted to look away, but actually this time, to be fair, at the beginning I did look away. I was absolutely horrified. I could not do it. It wasn't just anything of like, I think it's bad. It's always the fact that I can't watch it is a good thing, because it's so realistic. It's so gruesome. It's still like sticks out, even though it's like older than 10 years. Like, it's incredible the work that they do, that it's so timeless. I really liked the fact that there are so many sort of glimmers of hope for Will pushing through, and that like there is a chance to actually like one up Hannibal a little bit, or like go a step ahead of him, which we've not really seen before. So it's very exciting, and it's kind of made the show, for me personally, a little bit more unpredictable in a way. In that terms of it. I mean, I know it's just very vague anyway, but to kind of not know what's going to happen, like, is the good gonna like come out on top for once, or is Hannibal just gonna always be the one running the show, or is his like, controls finally like breaking through because someone beat him to being caught? Like, he went to go and get Bedelia, and she'd already gone. So it's very interesting to see things flip on their head a little bit, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I don't like when one character is infallible, and I like the fact that I like them being, if they're just overpowered, it just gets boring. It's like your Superman effect, whereas because Superman sometimes is overpowered. He can do no wrong, he can do no and stuff that at times is boring. But yeah.
I agree. I think we'll talk about it a bit, but like the conclusion with what happens with Bedelia in this episode is kind of the first glimpse of Hannibal's not winning all the time, which is quite nice. So I said that I would very briefly explain the episode title of each episode, so I will do that now. This episode is Sakizuke, which is the kaiseki appetizer, so it's the first meal you'd have in kaiseki.
Oh.
It's quite similar to an amuse-bouche in that it's normally like a little bite-sized flavoursome thing. It's normally a little dainty mouthful. And yeah, that's that. It'll never probably be an especially elaborate explanation.
I mean, an explanation's an explanation. You did the brief.
This is like the most trivia-free episode where that was going to be it, and then I was reminded, no, there is a dish in this episode, and I have nothing to say about it. So,
oh no, we talked about it briefly.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, I will tell you a couple of little things about it very quickly a little later on.
Yay!
So let's start with our juicy talking points, where Felix wrote too much for all of them. It's what I do some weeks.
Never too much.
We like alternate between either a bunch of little short ones or a few whoppers. Is how I tend to do these.
It is a very good question.
I hope so. That's good to know. So, our first one is, in this episode, we see Will start to play Hannibal at his own game, changing his tactic of threatening a reckoning and instead trying to reconcile things with him. But we see from how he changes when he's alone that his wounded bird act, as the script puts it, is just that, it's an act. So what do you think of Will's new tactics?
I like it. I think it's really cool. I'm not sure if he's completely convinced Hannibal. Like, parts of it just goes, Hannibal's seeing through his bullshit a bit, I feel like. But have at it, finally, go after him, do it. But yeah, it's really cool to see Will in contrast to what he was like in season 1, from kind of like the bird in the cave, the wounded bird, to now being kind of like a hound he's become. So, and how he's unraveling the picture everyone else has of Hannibal, because he's just look at to Beverly, just look at Hannibal a bit deeper. And it even causes Beverly to kind of like look a lot at things, like the scene where she's looking down at the stitches of one of the cadavers, one of the undead, which is the killer, and going, that's interesting. That doesn't look the same as how the others were stitched together. But yeah.
Me? Okay. Sorry.
I mean, if you want to.
If you want to,
no,
yeah.
I'm going to sit here and listen to you two talk all episode. I think man is big fucking braining and using all of the brain cells in all of the whole fucking state. I sort of agree with Shaira in a way. I feel like there's a bit of uncertainty as to whether it will work per se. I think the fact that Will is having this idea is a good one, and I think if Hannibal has a certain perception of Will in terms of like his current state of mind, his illness, and where he is in general, I think he can get away with it potentially, because if it's something like this is just so not expected from Will, then I think he could get away with it. But I think it's a bit I can't talk. I think it's a little early to say as to whether it will work on Hannibal. I am a little bit like, what is even the word? A little bit questionable about it in general, just because Hannibal is so unpredictable and he's done stuff that we don't even realize, and he's just always been ahead of everyone. However, this episode has been the first to break through all of that, as we said. So it could actually work, and I think I want it to work, because the natural thing as, good, normal human beings with a conscience, we're always like, we want the depends. If you really like a villain in a certain story, then but for the most part, I think we innately always want the good to come out on top. So I feel like we want him to get this, and we want him to succeed. I think he's smart for doing it. Basically, too long didn't listen. I think he's very smart, and I think if he sticks to it and uses his intelligence, which he definitely has, he's so smart. So if there's anyone that can do this, it is Will. I think if he really sticks to it and kind of makes his moves accordingly, I think he can pull it off.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we got to see if Hannibal's obsession gets in the way as well, because that's another thing that could be in Will's favor if Hannibal's obsession with Will kind of clouds his judgment.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a weakness. Everyone has some kind of weakness that you can tap into. Yeah.
Manipulate. Yeah, they're both manipulative, pretty much, which I think is what Hannibal wants of Will to be. Will to be so. It's a double-edged sword, but at the same time, I'm Team Will, and I hope he gets Hannibal, as sexy as Hannibal is. And I'm only saying this because Mads is sexy as hell. I'm not Team Hannibal. I'm sorry. He makes a bad wife.
Fine. It's fine. My heart is just breaking over here. It's fine.
Like Shaira is just so like opposite ends about the same person. I mean, about the character.
It's so funny.
But
yeah. Whole season 1. Honey.
How quickly you have turned on that man.
Yeah, but then also you'll randomly be like, "Oh yeah, honey, baby," and I'm like, "Babe,
look, he's sexy, and I get it, but that's exactly why. And if he was doing it to me, I wouldn't care, because I don't.
You'd bang him, but you wouldn't call him afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I agree with you both, though. Yeah, it's interesting because we've never seen Will use his intelligence in this way before, and I agree with you. We're so used to Hannibal always being so many steps ahead. It's very hard to know if it's working or if it's going to work. But like you said, Shaira, there's also that point of, is Will Hannibal's weak point, though? You made two very good points I both agree with. One, could that be his downfall in falling for it because of his obsession? But also, Will is being manipulative, and that also potentially reflects what Hannibal wants to see from him. So is in a more playing the long game way, is that potentially a bad thing because he's becoming more like what Hannibal wants him to be?
Yeah.
Only time will tell, but really good observations to make, I think. I'm going to read a couple of little script details purely because I really like them. In general, this episode script is just chef's kiss, so good. So, when Will is crying in front of Hannibal and Alana, and then he's taken back to his cell, the script says, once alone, Will's weeping ceases almost immediately, off his face going cold and calculating, a game is afoot. So good.
Game is afoot.
Well, literally a bit later in the episode.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's so dumb. I hope they meant that. I hope that was on purpose. Later in the episode, when Hannibal goes to see Will by himself in what's called the therapy cage, which is when all the single dunking tank style cages are lined up, they're called therapy cages.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because that's where they talk to the therapists instead of in their cells. Basically, I'm just going to be nerdy. In the BSHCI, the main areas we see are the individual cells. Then there's the therapy cages, and then there's the privacy room, which is like a separate cell which has its own door and a table in the middle where people could go and talk. One-on-one without having to be restrained. I don't think it is the privacy room where we see Will with Bev, but we'll see the privacy room later. But yeah, in the therapy cage, there's a little script detail when Will is talking to Hannibal where it says, Will sits on a stool in the belly of his own therapy cage. He has resumed his act of wounded bird and it remains authentic. Basically, he's being convincing. And yeah, I love the term of wounded bird. He's trying to look broken in front of
And
Hannibal.
all innocent and sweet and like cute. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
He's trying to honeypot.
I mean, I would say that Will's manipulation is hot, but that's me.
I mean, for Hannibal, yeah, it's true.
I like the bastards. So the second talking point, we're going to switch over to Bedelia, who is such an interesting part of this episode.
Smash.
So smash. Oh, Jane Anderson is too beautiful; it should be illegal.
So
Yeah.
good.
So pretty.
So we see Bedelia get the one up over. I'm gonna say that again. We see Bedelia get the one up over Hannibal in this episode, pulling away from his influence and manipulation seemingly successfully, as he's shown being too late to track her down at the end. Also, despite her discouraging Hannibal's obsession, she feels the need to meet Will. My dyslexia today is a cunt. And tell him the 3 words he really needs to hear. I believe you. Has this changed your thoughts on the enigma that is Bedelia and Hannibal's hold over her?
Yeah, I thought there was at least something going on, but now I'm thinking it all along it was just Hannibal being Hannibal and causing poor Bedelia to be afraid of Hannibal, which I understand. But yeah, it's nice the fact that she's given Will more hope, which is great. But yeah, and also yes, finally someone's got one over on Hannibal, and yeah, which is one of the best parts of this episode. Is like, oh, fucking finally, this lad has got too many wins. He needs to be cut down a peg.
Yeah.
I agree. I think this is one of the highlights of the episode for sure, that we see that someone can sort of not beat Hannibal, but sort of in a way get ahead of him. I am a little bit on the opposite side. I think that there still was something, but I think that Bedelia has just gotten to a point where she's like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I think I think it's just one of those moments where you kind of see too much evidence pointing to something to ignore it. So it's almost like, if someone that you like, whether it's a close friend or a celebrity you admire, and there's some accusations that come out, and slowly after time, there is like one piece of evidence and another piece of evidence, and they're all very hard, facts that you can't really ignore, and then it gets to a point where you're like, well, okay, I kind of can't ignore everything now. I'm going to have to accept the truth for what it is. I think that's what's happened in a weird way. I think that Bedelia maybe was fed some kind of lies by Hannibal or something, or maybe Hannibal was just like, I don't know, maybe made her think something to do with the attack, maybe felt like she couldn't say anything or she couldn't speak the truth. And I think she's always said everything very carefully. I think the way in which she speaks so differently to everyone else, she's always very slow and very careful about the way that she speaks. And I don't know if that's just her the actress's interpretation of the character, but I think it might be more towards she's just so aware of Hannibal's presence and Hannibal's know of everything that happens. I feel like she was always choosing her words carefully, and even when she was in front of him, she was like, I'm going to make sure I pick my words carefully to not give away what I'm saying. Even like, they were working with the FBI, Hannibal's working sort of with someone with the FBI, and involving himself as well. I think that she just sort of felt that she didn't need to be scared anymore, and was just like, not scared of like, well, she is scared because she kind of ran off and withdrew herself, but I think as in scared of like, she doesn't need to be under his spell anymore. I think she just sort of broke away and was just like, do you know what? No, like, I'm going to protect myself. I don't want to get any closer. I believe what's happening, because I think she is a psychiatrist, and I think she saw things to do with Will and stuff that just added up for her and she could tell what was happening. She saw it with her own eyes, with her own patient. She was like, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to be in front of a patient that's too dangerous. I'm going to dip out. And I think she was smart to do that. So I do think there was something there. I just think that she is out of his hold of some sort to sort of save herself, because she was concerned more about her safety and was like, fuck this, I'm bowing out.
How do you feel about... So I completely agree with you. I think that Bedelia has done like a brave thing, like the way we see her in his office step back and the look on his face is super interesting because it's not that he looks threatening, so it's more that he's looking at her and realizing that she knows he is threatening whether he looks it or not, which is very interesting. I love that whole moment and the way he then steps forward to be like, oh yeah, I am actually. But how do you feel about... I'm wondering if either of you have any thoughts on the fact that she went to see Will, because not in a bad way. She's been quite self-serving in that she's using self-preservation and basically being like she's made a decision to take herself out of harm's way. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on like her motivation or just anything about what she did with Will.
It kind of could be similar to self-preservation if he's away while Will is tackling head on. Will is tackling Hanny head on. Maybe it gives her a bit more safety in that respect. So yeah, could be another kind of self-preservation thing for herself.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to press the button. It wasn't fucking working. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, well, I think maybe she knows that if Will knows that someone believes him, and it kind of, because if someone says, "Oh, I believe you, I understand what you mean," it validates you, and you're like, "Okay, cool. Like I'm not just on my own. I'm not just sort of making it up. I'm not going crazy or anything like that." Like in his sense, like he probably is just sort of battling the thing of, am I actually going crazy or am I right in this? So I think she knows that if she tells Will that she believes him, that means that he's on the right track, and it will probably motivate him to continue with trying to bring Hannibal down, and therefore it would also allow her to know that her safety is going to be imminent, in the sense that, like, if Hannibal gets caught and Hannibal gets taken down, then she can come out of what I assume is going to be like hiding of some sort. So it's sort of for her sake, and also just to help spur on Will, I think, in him trying to get to the bottom of what happened and to be believed.
I think that makes sense. I suppose in a way she could be hoping, that if she provides that little bit of moral support, it gives a higher chance of Hannibal having to face retribution, which means that she'll in the long term be more protected, maybe.
Yeah.
I quickly brought up the script because I just want to read, because again this episode's script is just so good. I just want to read the script detail of Will's reaction after she says "I believe you," just because it's really nice. Like we see how he reacts, but sometimes it's nice to have the script kind of like reinforce it really like clearly.
Yeah, because it kind of gives the insight of how they were meaning for whatever to be interpreted and come across.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to just be like, oh, good, I was meant to see it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So once she's moved away from the bars, it says, Will stares at her, a wave of emotion washing over him as Bedelia steps away, gathered by the nurse and a guard and escorted back down the corridor. Camera pushes in as he begins to tremble, a great relief having heard 3 simple words he's needed to hear.
Yeah.
So good. It's really nice. Just like, regardless of her motivations, he needed that. No one else was going to give that to him because no one else does believe him.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, Will.
Absolutely. Regardless of Bedelia's motivations, finally, Will's got a bit of hope, but it's good.
Yeah. Even if she does then bugger off, it's still nice.
It's good to know that someone is there.
Yeah, fucking someone.
Believes him.
So I did a talking point about Jack, so I sort of mentioned it, but I'll say we watched 2 deleted scenes. In this episode, there were scripted 3 scenes for his FBI psych eval. In the episode itself, you only see the middle one, which I think they just chose as the most informative of his experience, I suppose. All 3 together are very good. And
They are very good.
Yeah, it's a shame they couldn't fit them into the episode. I assume for time constraints, so they just went for like the most important one. But all 3 together are very good, and people can find the deleted scenes easily on YouTube as well if you want to go see them. So Jack has shown remorse over what happened to Will. There are 2 deleted scenes that confirm his biggest doubts seem to be that he didn't really know who Will was, and because of that, he also questions his own competency. But Jack's conversation with Beverly in this episode is very reminiscent of his conversation with Miriam Lass when he encouraged her to go after the Ripper. So do you think he's actually changed at all, even with Will at risk of the death penalty?
No, he seems still mean. He kind of learns really too late, doesn't he?
Mm.
Like listen to kind of like yourself a little bit. But yeah, I don't think he's changed per se. Unfortunately, he's still that same old Jack. Maybe he's a little bit more cautious, but I think a nail is a nail to a hammer, and I think he unfortunately resembles too much of a hammer.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can sort of see signs of Jack changing, and I think it's more his anger and frustration over these things happening over his watch, because he does feel responsible for it, and I think it's more. I think you can see that he is changing because he does feel upset and how he wants to believe that Will is innocent and stuff, but I think the love for the job and the want to find justice and all of those things is always going to come out on top for him. And I think he kind of has this focus of like, even if it's your own friends, even if it's the people that you love and that are closest to you, you still have to treat them like suspects and everything else. And I think it's that mentality that kind of gives off the sense of like, oh, he hasn't learned. I don't think it's necessarily that he hasn't changed his perception even just a little bit. I think it's just that he's trying to keep his work brain on and be like, I need to look at this sort of like with no bias and just factually how it is. And yeah, I think it's just the conflict of having, again, someone so close to him and someone that he really appreciated and considered a friend is now in a position that he never thought would be, and all happened under his watch. And like he said in the psych eval, he said like, I pushed him. Like, he does have some sense of responsibility almost. He's like, if I didn't push him, maybe he wouldn't have shown himself to be who he is. But it's like the be who he is bit is sort of implying that he still just knows that he was a murderer. Oh, I don't know. I think it's one of those things you can really go back and forth on. I do think he is trying to change and trying to learn, but I think, like I said, that mindset of looking at it without any bias and just always keeping someone as a suspect, no matter how hard it is to do, is just always going to be at the forefront of his mind, because you have to be on the side of justice and the side of good, because he works in the force, so he can't go against that.
Yeah.
This episode pisses me off. I don't. What annoys me about this episode is the fact that Jack is right in when he talks to Beverly.
Yeah.
That's what annoys me most, is because he's aware he can't go and talk to Will. It's too risky for him. But he also knows that to help them catch the killer, someone should go and talk to Will. Yeah. So he's right in encouraging Beverly, but that's exactly what got Miriam Lass killed.
Exactly.
And it pisses me off so much that he's doing the right thing, but he shouldn't be doing it.
But he's also a very intelligent man, though, and he knows this force. He knows how this job goes. He knows. I think he wouldn't be making these decisions if he didn't know that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And again, that's why it's so frustrating, because you're putting people's lives at risk, and they could end up just exactly how Miriam did. Like, you're risking this again, but it's also the risk can have a high reward. So, it is about taking a risk sometimes to try and get to the sole purpose, which is finding the solution, solving the crime, bringing justice to the front. It's all for the same cause. So it's sort of like sometimes you'll do whatever you need to do, which is infuriating because it's smart and because you can't really fault it, even though you're like, please don't be responsible for someone else dying, otherwise your mental brain is going to go in the bin.
Yeah. I think his trust in Beverly is a bit more solid, because I think Beverly's a bit more intelligent, but he's definitely going about it the wrong way, and there's an issue that there's a possibility that Beverly could be unfortunately cut loose.
I think Beverly's also smart, though, as well, because she wouldn't be so successful in her job if she wasn't.
And Miriam Lass was really smart as well. That's how she got
True. She was a little bit of a junior, though.
Yeah, I think she was a bit of a
she was an agent in training.
Yeah, in terms of the job, and I think Beverly is not only a bit older, I assume, just by the way that Miriam was
probably
depicted, but also a bit of a more senior in the job role and having done it for a while.
She's not an agent in the same way that Miriam was, though. Even though Miriam was in training, she's part of the science team.
True.
She is,
You still need a brain cell or two.
Yeah.
But these people are, psychopaths, criminals, all the rest of it are even smarter in certain cases. So, it doesn't really matter how smart you are. If you can figure something out, it doesn't mean that you can figure everyone out. So there's still the risk either way. But if it brings about the result that everyone needs to solve the crime, then I don't know, maybe it'll pay off.
So talking about Beverly leads on to our next talking point. For more Beverly, I'm always happy to talk about Beverly. Happily to talk about Beverly. She is best girl. She really is. Smash. I love her. I would want to be her friend. So Will asked Beverly.
I want to be with her.
Fair, valid, understandable. Will asked Beverly to forget the evidence against him and basically start afresh. And we've said before now, she's one of the most intelligent characters in the show. So do you think she'll be able to help him?
Yeah.
And possibly get too close, but I think
that's always going to be a risk, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like in just carrying on of in a way what we've been saying before, unless you're not prepared to potentially get too close, I don't think you would go into this line of work. Even if you're on the side of forensics and everything, where you're not necessarily always at the crime scene or approaching the criminals to hunt them down and arrest them or whatever, or catch them. Even if you're not that kind of close, I feel like you're still deep into looking into evidence, and criminals can find out about these things and know who you are and all of this stuff. You're still exposing yourself. So I feel like unless you're prepared for that, you wouldn't do the job anyway. So I think there's always the chance that she was going to get too close to anything in one way or another. But I think Will and Beverly do have a bit of a friendship, like we saw it from the first episode from the start. I think they're very close, and I think they understand each other, or at least Beverly understands Will, so then Will was willing to open up to her a little bit.
They have a sibling relationship too.
Very much so.
They very much have a sibling relationship.
And I think with the fact that she is someone that's, obviously in the forensics team, that she's I can't ignore the science will tell me everything, blah, blah, blah. if she does find that right kind of science, then it's going to be there in her face, and she will know. Yeah.
As I
I
said,
think she did.
sorry. As I said, she said earlier, she's definitely taking on board Will's kind of points to heart, because she's looking a bit closer at Hannibal. Like there's parts of the scene where Hannibal walked past her and she's just giving him a look, and then looks at the the crime scene and just going, okay, yeah, there's something's not adding up here. So clearly she's putting it together, and I think she's gonna be able to help him a lot. And I'm not sure how much help she's gonna be before she becomes the target of Hannibal, but I hope she is able to.
Well, I don't know. We've not really seen him target any of the main cast.
Yeah, that's true.
I would also argue, however, that Beverly kind of almost fucks up this episode. Because there's the scene where both him and Hannibal are talking to Will in the therapy cage. And she says something. Give me a moment, because I'm going to find it in the script. Basically, when Beverly and Hannibal go to Will's a little bit hesitant to talk to them initially. And she says, I'm devoting a lot of time to this mural, Will. It's hard for me to focus on anything else I've been tasked to do.
Yeah.
And Hannibal looks at her for a second, and it's much more subtle, but I would also argue that Will looks at her.
Yeah.
In the script, it says subtle, but perhaps not subtle enough for Hannibal. Beverly walks the crime scene photos over to Will. I don't know necessarily if Hannibal does catch anything from that. Again, it kind of suggests maybe in the script and maybe in the show. But mostly, like, as intelligent as Beverly is, that pissed me off. Just because she knows that Will suspects Hannibal. So for her to say that in front of him, although she didn't mean anything by it, she shouldn't have.
She shouldn't have, yeah.
So that was silly. So as clever as Beverly is, she does do a silly fuck up in this episode.
Valid, yeah. So she can clearly fuck up as well.
As everyone does in this show.
I was going to say, nobody is perfect.
Yeah.
Hannibal
she's probably
is
the closest. Well, I don't think we can say Hannibal is. If we want to go back to the Bedelia situation.
Well, yeah.
On that note, I just wanted to. There was one other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to say. When we watched the episode, I made a certain comment about him seeing the perfume in her house.
Yeah.
And since then, I saw in the script that I've got the script up. I'm not checking it. It describes it as a memento of their friendship. I still personally agree with my own interpretation of that, in that it is Bedelia giving him the middle finger.
Same.
Yeah,
she's mad off bitch.
She knows he has mad olfactory senses, so I think that's her just being like, "Ha, fuck you! You'll still smell me even though I've gotten away from you." That's what I think.
Yeah, hasn't he commented on her perfume before? Or have I completely fabricated that?
I don't think he has, but knowing that they've had this professional relationship on and off for so long, there's no way she doesn't know.
Yeah.
I think that's just impossible. She knows him too well. She knows him better than anyone else. So let's talk about the killer, who now in this episode, he's not called this in the episode. They might call him it in the next episode, I can't remember, but in the script he's now called the Muralist. Because not all of the killers in Hannibal get a cool name, but a lot of them do. I love the Muralist, both the name and the character, actually. He's one of my favourite killers, I think. But so he shows some aggression when he chases down Roland Umber at the start, and we know he abducts people, but the methods we see him using aren't especially violent, they're just quite disturbing. When we see him interact with Hannibal, he's almost resigned and kind of submissive, so I just want to know what you think about the Muralist and his artwork. Fair?
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah. I think I said the last episode, even if it was trying to be apolitical, it's unfortunately it inherently is political, but also I think at that moment of his kind of quote unquote dying moments, he's gain the help that he needs, possibly to get to fill in the pieces of himself. Like, and that's what makes him a bit sedated, rather than being aggressive, trying to get out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, yeah, that's. But we don't really get much from that scene anyway. So like it could have just been an afterthought, and just part of the procedural to kind of elevate Hannibal and kind of show Hannibal to be a bit more kind of like, oh god, like of course Hannibal thinks it's beautiful, but you know. But yeah, I can't really suss it out too much. I'm not sure why he didn't fight back in that scene. Maybe he got too much of the drug inside him. And yeah,
It's very valid. He has been shot up with an overdose of heroin.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in the sense that it's not a lot of thoughts about it. It's just very interesting. I think he shows himself as being quite timid from the start, really, because I mean we haven't really seen too much of it anyway, so there's not a lot to go off of other than the fact that I understand the thing of like being a muralist in a way because he was like collecting a literal, very weird to say it about people, but color palette of skin tones. It was what's it called? Like almost like a gradient, and it was very creepy, especially coming from a white male.
Yep. Very
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, but just anything of his movements. I mean, apart from the fact that he was killing people and overdosing them and summing them up. I feel like his movements were a little bit timid anyway. I don't think we really heard him say much other than, "Oh, your skin's really nice" or whatever it was that he said. Yeah, I don't think too much of it, but I think his version of art just kind of showed a bit of a mental illness in the sense that why do you need to sew people up and cover them with resin? Like, I don't know, maybe he was trying to, like how artists can make sculptures and stuff. Maybe he was trying to go down that route and do something in realism in a really fucked up way.
yeah.
He's preserving them.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I think there wasn't enough of I think we didn't see enough to kind of even gauge much of an opinion other than ill, gross, creepy, racist, weird. Seek help. That's it.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely valid. We never get a real idea of his motives, even in his conversation with Hannibal. Hannibal is so leading in that conversation that we don't learn much about the muralist and why he's doing what he's doing. He's interesting because on the one hand, you can see why Hannibal likes his work, because it's even more obscene and so much greater in scale, but it's the closest we've seen to a tableau, which is what Hannibal does when he kills people, or at least sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes when Hannibal kills people, he does an elaborate tableau, because of course we've heard Will describe it as like artistic.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the closest thing to what Hannibal does, but he has a much more pessimistic outlook. But that leads on to my final question, which is, what do you think Hannibal's motive was in ingratiating himself with the killer, the muralist? Why does he place him into his own design?
Well, he thinks of himself as a god. Maybe he was trying to recreate that scene, because you even see it in the scene where Will kind of like closes his eyes and sees Hannibal looking down, and I think like he's serving his own purpose there of like giving the killer the purpose that the killer wants, but also kind of trying to elevate himself and going, you know what, you want to see God? Witness me, witness who I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There was so little to kind of hints to that like, yes, Hannibal led a lot of it, but it felt, I don't know, it just felt self-serving. Maybe the godhood part came into it, but yeah, it was, again, you mentioned it just now, it's artistic, it's the way Hannibal kills, so Hannibal obviously did so and then took a part of him to cook later on for himself. It's kind of, it gives him a bit of a satisfaction in that, when he eats people. But yeah, it's a bit confusing. I can't fully get my head around it.
Well, because the first thing I thought when I saw the mural itself was that it looked like an eye. That was the main thing that I couldn't get out of my mind every time I looked at it. And then the other thing that I don't ask why, but for some reason the sort of saying beauty is in the eye of the beholder just kept going round my head, and the fact that how the eye, the shape of the mural, I'm just going to refer to it as a mural to just sort of
that's what it is.
paraphrase, yeah, to make it easier to talk about. The mural, like, it was constantly put into like someone's eye, like whether it's Will or Hannibal's, and it, like, yeah, literally went into his eye, and it was almost like very literally, he sees it as beautiful. The eye, literally, he's viewing it, and then that's it. I think this is a way of him exercising the way that he views himself as above everybody else, and it's almost like he either is God or a god, or it's like God, him, everybody else. I think he just, like, the way that he sees himself as a higher being, I think this is almost him just asserting his presence and his higher self onto everyone. And I think Hannibal putting the killer into the mural was almost like his way of being like, oh, I'm sort of almighty, I know what real beauty is, and I'm going to put you in the middle because that's like the finishing touch, and then that means like part of this work is mine, and I've really made it what the true work of art that it is, kind of thing. I thought it was almost like a little bit of like sense of ownership, like this is all great, but I want to be the one to make it better and the best thing, and like this is also really poetic. And like when he first saw it, he started hearing like classical music, and like we've seen how he is with classical music, he's like overwhelmed with emotion. And I think he almost thought the same by seeing this mural, and was like, this is perfect, this is a work of art, it's like music to my ears. And he was like, the best thing and the most like beautiful concept would be for you as the OG artist to be put into the middle. And he was like, oh, I will do that honor, I will take it. I think it was very much like, for him, just this huge, like, actual genuine piece of beautiful art, and
Yeah.
him being so powerful, he's like, yeah, this is going to be like the perfect cherry on the top of the cake sort of thing. I think he did see it as just this big grandeur piece of art rather than mass murder. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I like it.
Great.
Yeah.
I yap on a lot, and I'm just like, oh god, how long have I been talking and saying the same shit?
No, I agree with you both. And I think there is definitely an element of Hannibal seeing something that he appreciates, and being the narcissist that he is, deciding to insert himself into that picture.
Yeah.
Ironically, by inserting the actual artist into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I also agree with Shaira's confusion about this. There's something peculiar about it that doesn't entirely make sense. We're not given much motive. And I felt the same watching this many times, where I was so focused on Hannibal and the muralist, I didn't think of a motive that would come from outside of that scene. And then I read the script.
Ooh.
Oh.
So they have a little bit more conversation in the script. It's not that interesting, but I'm going to say it anyway, just because I like the way it ends, and I kind of wish they'd included it. But it is actually my favorite scene in the episode, so I'm fine with it. So when Hannibal is sewing the muralist into his own mural, he says, "When God looks down at you, don't you want to be looking back at him?" And the muralist says yes. Wait, no, sorry, the muralist doesn't say yes. Then it finishes. In the script, Hannibal continues, and the muralist replies yes. Then it says, as the narcotic takes hold, his life ebbing away, the muralist recalls their agreement. And the muralist asks Hannibal, "What is it you wanted from me?" And Hannibal says, "Only this." And I wish that was in the scene. But then it says...
Ooh.
Camera pulls up and away as Hannibal stitches the muralist into his own masterwork, making Will Graham's forecast come to pass. A Valentine.
What?
Pardon?
Who else knows about the mural?
Will
Will and the rest of the FBI, yeah, because they're investigating it. Hannibal knows that Will is investigating it. Hannibal also knows that Beverly has been talking to Will about it to prompt Will to imagine what the killer is doing. So Hannibal has ingratiated himself into something that Will has to recreate in his mind. He's still playing with him.
Gosh.
The one murder that's currently happening whilst Will is imprisoned, and Hannibal has made it about him so that Will will still have to picture him, and he did. It's
Bro's
a Valentine to Will.
Yeah.
I told you, he has an obsession. So yeah, it's not just something that Hannibal appreciates, it's a message. The piece of shit, clever bastard.
Yeah, I did not see that. That is...
Right? See, I didn't see that when watching it, and now when I think about it, I'm like, oh shit, it makes sense, doesn't
it? Head explosion. That, oh my god, that piece of shit.
I think this could be...
I love him for it,
I think this could be the thing that makes Hannibal fall. Like,
he's taking so many risks because of this one man, right?
Yeah, I think it's changing him, and he's losing his... I think he's going to start losing his wit in terms of like his concentration, his smart 5 steps ahead. He's becoming too into like doing the most shit. Why the fuck does he need to be getting a message over to bro? You got him into a psychiatric hospital. Why are you now still toying with the boy? Like, why are you doing this? He doesn't actually need to do this.
He still wants him.
Literally, and I think that him being careless is going to trip him up, and it already has started to, because Bedelia got out before he can even get to her.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the things that people do for love, man. We all just become blind.
Hannibal is the epitome of toxic love.
Yeah, man.
I love it so much. It's so frustrating and so fantastic and so terrible. So, should we do our ending bits?
Woo!
Right. So, Shaira, favorite quote?
Oh, okay. So, honorable mention first, because I kind of really like this this quote, because it's a good quote from Bedelia. So, what exactly am I guilty of? Exactly, I cannot say, and then I've had to draw a conclusion based on what I glimpsed through the stitching of the person suit that you wear, and the conclusion that I've drawn is that you are dangerous, and that's like, love that. And that's at the start. It's such a good like whole, and then the ending, it's like, person suit, brilliant, perfect. But yeah, just honorable mention quickly. But my favorite fucking line is Will being sassy, and it's because I do not like Dr. Chilton. Like, he's being very, like, Beverly Cox is, Beverly's being, he's being, was it Beverly? I can't remember, maybe, he's being very cooperative. Yeah, he's being very, very cooperative. Of course he is. He loves when I have visitors. He's recording every word. He's gossipy that way. I was like, that made me laugh so much.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, he's not wrong. I was like, I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to see Dr. Children. Even though I don't like him, he's a good character and it's funny. Every time it makes me laugh, and when he's talked about it makes me laugh. So yeah, that was my favourite quote, the gossipy part. Like, he's gossipy that way. It's like, yes, perfect.
My quote is just because I chose this one because it's like a very obvious, a bit cheesy, in your face kind of joke, but I think because of that and delivered by these characters that we, love so much, and there's not a lot of comic relief in this show very often. Because of how terrible the joke is, it's like funnier than it should be. It's one of those. Excuse
Yeah.
me. I don't know if you've guessed already, but it's the part
I'm
where
hoping.
they're already at the cornfield and they're about to investigate, and Jack says to Hannibal, "You might want to prepare yourself. You've never seen anything like this." And then Hannibal just says, "I'm sure I haven't."
He's such a
And
little shit.
do you know what I mean? No, it's also just a terrible joke of like, you might want to prepare yourself. You've never seen anything like this. Like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. He's seen it. He's never seen it. But it's just the fact that it's just so like bad. It's good.
So I thought you were going to say something else. So now I have to give it an honorable mention.
Oh,
Which is when Hannibal is going to see Will in the therapy cage and says, "I would argue drawing a line might encourage a pissing contest." And Will says, "I'm not interested in pissing contests with you, Dr. Lecter."
That was a good line.
It's so silly, but it's really funny. I have another honorable mention, which is a quote I really like, but wasn't quite my favorite, which is when they're in the silo with Hannibal, Beverly, and Jack. And Hannibal says, "When it comes to nature versus nurture, I choose neither. We are built from a DNA blueprint and born into a world of scenario and circumstance we don't control."
Christ.
The dialogue of the show is so good. But my favourite is a Bedelia line, because I love whenever this show says something clever about trauma, and it's the line, "The traumatized are unpredictable because we know we can survive."
Oh, that's a very good line. Fucking.
So
Oh.
good!
Dang.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that line.
Right, hell yeah, Bedelia. Go Bedelia.
Favorite moment. Okay, so there's so many good moments in this scene, but I think I liked the part where Will goes back to his mind palace. But
Ooh.
in this mind palace, the things that he saw is affecting him. So the bodies he saw in the mural is affecting him, and that just kind of gives us a hint that, despite Hannibal's kind of manipulation, Will is obviously affected by this. It's not just Hannibal here. It's Will as well. Like, there's clearly something wrong with Will, and it's not the encephalitis anymore. It's these things affect him, so it's not just Hannibal. So like, it's kind of like giving, he needs to step away from this, but then how can he? But obviously, because he needs help from Beverly, and Beverly will only help if he helps. So but yeah, I like that scene. I'm not sure. It's and there's so many good other scenes, but yeah, I think that scene just kind of like shown for me because of the connotations. Like, oh, is there something there possibly? But yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. My favorite moment is kind of like, I'd say, because we kind of see it twice or more than once at least. It's just this, I guess, notion in general. So like multiple moments, but of the same thing. It's just of Will being given the facts of the crime scene by Beverly, and Will just explaining perfectly the crime scene and what happened. I said in my notes, proves the fact that he is smart and able to solve a crime and wasn't just a whole facade to cover the fact that he was the one responsible. Because I know that was one of the things put against him as to like one of the reasons that he was quote unquote found out to be responsible for the murders, in my opinion, because Jack says that line, when you were at the crime scenes and stuff, that you looked and described yourself. and that's not the case. Like, he is actually, I feel like for me, this is like counts as a glimmer of hope for Will being found innocent, because if, like I've said, I think I said it last episode, if he was responsible for the crimes and everything, and he wasn't actually that smart, he was just explaining what he did himself, sorry, then if he was like given a crime scene, then he'd be like, oh, I don't know, like I don't really know, like, or like taking him a long time to figure it out. But he is actually that, like, much of it like a critical thinker in a way, and he's very smart. He analyzes everything, and he does have a special skill in solving a crime in the way that none of the other people in the office could come up with. Like, he figured out what the motive was, and he figured out, exactly what happened to help the FBI figure out what was going on. It is his intelligence. He is actually that special. He is actually that smart. And I think that is a tiny little bit of hope to hold on to sort of say, like, we should listen to him. He is like, he is innocent. He didn't just randomly explain everything that he'd done. Like, he is smart. You know what I mean? Yeah. So those moments where he's like literally perfectly depicting everything that happens, I'm just like, yes, Will. Those are my favorite moments.
Awesome. I'm going to be a pedantic little bitch for a second.
Go for it.
And because you won't know this, but I'm going to say it. Is in the world of Hannibal, instead of a mind palace, it's a memory palace.
Oh.
I only stress this because it makes it separate from Arthur Conan Doyle's works of Sherlock Holmes. Just to be different.
To be fair, whenever Mind Palace was said, does anyone know about the Persona franchise?
Yeah?
Yeah. Random side note, one of my favourite franchises. I love
Persona's great.
I'm low-key a little bit obsessed. Like, I love Persona so much. And they obviously have, like, their palaces, like Persona 5 and stuff, where they go into like their palaces. So whenever anyone said Mind Palace, I was like, Persona?
I don't know why, but my brain was just like, are you going to be like, should we call it the Velvet Room? I am also a Persona nerd.
I'm happy now.
Fuck yeah, Persona. Everyone, please tag us if you also like Persona.
Please talk to me about Persona.
I need to finish 5. Right, my favorite moment. As I kind of alluded to before, my favorite moment is the entire scene between Hannibal and the muralist. Mostly because I think it's an incredibly good example of all of the little different elements of Hannibal's personality that we don't necessarily see normally, because we're so used to him giving like silly puns and jokes that only he understands, or being very charming, or potentially being aggressive, but very rarely. He's entirely himself, in my opinion, in that scene, because he's with someone who's about to die. So there's nothing to hide. He's being smug. He's talking about God. He's being charming. He's also funny. When the muralist says there is no God, he says certainly not with that attitude. Yeah, he's silly and funny and kind of lighthearted and relaxed whilst doing something terrible. And he's also, though, incredibly intimate and caring. He's killing this man, but he appreciates his work. Like, the way that he touches his cheek and like rubs his thumb along the side of his cheek is incredibly intimate. And we only ever see Hannibal doing something like that. The other characters are never intimate with each other like that.
I find that a bit creepy.
I mean, you could absolutely say that it's creepy. That is completely valid. But remember how I kind of mentioned in season 1 that Hannibal uses touch to ground people? Like the way that we see him put a hand on Will during stressful situations. And yeah, I think just that little scene shows lots of little glimpses of Hannibal's personality unfiltered that we don't often get to see, so I really like it. Let's go! Predictions!
Woo!
I feel like history's a bit repeating itself here, where Hannibal, where Jack is kind of pushing Beverly into a point of no return, really. And I feel like there's a danger to that I just, I'm worried that there's that's what's going to happen. But then obviously I feel like I want Will to win, but I also feel like Hannibal is still a few steps ahead, especially after what you said just now with the whole Hannibal sending a message to Will.
Mm.
Now I'm like, oof, what if the predictions, what if I'm wrong? And also, unfortunately, I'm going to have to mention, we need to refill part of the Hannibal cult family because Bedelia is gone. So we're going to have someone introduced to us who's another part of Hannibal's cult family. He's only
Hannibal casting couch.
Yeah, Hannibal's casting couch. Lot. Yes, it's good. It's like going to find it back. But yeah, maybe poor Henry will come back. I forgot his name now.
Henry?
Not Henry. What was it? The Henry. What is Henry? Who's Henry? My brain has forgot what her name.
Who's Henry?
Yeah, who's Henry? The guy who got killed. The guy who really wanted. The guy who wanted to be
Franklin.
Franklin. Yeah, what do you think? Yes. No, Franklin.
I love how on it our brains are today.
Yeah, but, oh god, bloopers. Henry. Why do I think Henry?
Fuck it, he's Henry now.
Yeah,
Henry Thunderbolt.
No, I'm just being silly. My brain is a bit of, like as you can tell, I'm melting. But yeah, I'm not sure. There's lots of variables to get through. There's lots of things that I'm unsure about, and it's intriguing. I want to know more. I kind of want to watch the next episode now. God damn it! But yeah, that's predictions for me.
Nice, love it. Shout out one time to Henry. Anyway, predictions. I kind of feel you, Shaira, I'm not going to lie. I think we're going to be, and I don't want this to happen. What I want to happen is the slow bringing down of Hannibal, of everyone just getting smarter and stronger, and we get him, and then it's like, oh my god, Will is innocent. Oh my god, yay, Hannibal. Fuck you. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to get teased. I think our pickle is going to be tickled.
Ooh.
I think Mr. Fuller is going to tickle everybody's pickle and be like, yes, lead him into false hope, bring him down, let him think that everyone's finally figuring out Hannibal's ways, and we're finally gonna bring him down. And I think there's going to be like loads of like hope over the next few episodes. It's just like, yes, we're getting there, we're about to climax and come. But then actually, there's going to be this huge, what's it called? Plot twist. And Hannibal was above everybody, and he was like, I let you think that you were ahead of me because that was all in my plan still, because I am God. And I think we're all going to be really upset and frustrated and be screaming at our screens and potentially throw controllers because we're gamers, but also not because we're not buying another controller. And that's what I think is going to happen. And I would like to also bring you all to our Discord conversation to see my final prediction suggestion.
What? Oh,
we'll go to chit chat.
Wait, yeah, you know, people on the podcast can't see that, right?
No, I know, but I'm just inviting you guys first, and then I shall explain.
I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of the variation in phrasing.
Yes, bum fun. That I have put in the Discord chat between all of us my predictions, and it just says bum fun in big letters and bold. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do a thing, and Felix is all like, the listeners can't see that. And I'm like, yes, I know. I was trying to do a big theatrical finish.
Fuck your fun.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Go on, say your predictions then, I guess.
Well, I always have incredibly accurate predictions, so...
I wonder why.
My next episode prediction is that Hannibal is going to start trying to sneak little notes through the bars of Will's cell, but it's just going to say shit like, do you like me, Y/N?
Oh my god. Fuck's sake, man.
P.S. Please someone draw that. I'm dying.
Anything
Okay.
else?
No, that's my prediction now.
Lovely, beautiful.
Why?
What? That's my prediction. Don't hate. God, Jesus. So it's time for my sign off, which, as we discussed last week, is a haiku.
Woo!
Woo!
I'm very bad at poetry. But I can count syllables, and that's all you need for a haiku. Nothing else, just syllables. My sign off is courtroom drama time. We'll get some surprise fan mail, but it's kinda gross. Fate and Circumstance is an independent podcast brought to you by Felix Fanfaron Fern, Melisa Suzan, and Shaira Bambi. You can find and follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Hannibal Pod. We are fans of the show NBC's Hannibal and do not own the rights to any of the materials discussed, merely appreciators. The music used in this podcast is Tchaikovsky's Op. No. 40 Waltz by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Thanks for listening.